So if your car is making a nasty racket like that on the right side with a front wheel drive, or all your accessories are on the right, take off your drive belt so you can spin each one of these pulleys individually. I get you a tool like this, makes the job a whole lot easier. This one is a 16 millimeter. You have 2 idler pulleys. So there's an idler pulley on the top, right there. Then you have your tensioner, and then another idler pulley down there. Put the 16 millimeter with a breaker bar or a special tool like this. It's real thin. Get in between the pulley and the frame. You turn that counterclockwise, pull your belt off. But you're gonna wanna make sure to take a picture of the belt and how it's routed first before you take it off. Already videoing. But you want that alternator to be focused. All right, so hold the flashlight.
Okay.
Then hold this to where you can see that alternator. You'll see where my hands go.
Like that.
Just follow my hands.
Okay.
So you want to spin each one of these to see if you can hear anything. Turn your fan off, make sure it's real quiet. You're gonna feel a little tension with a power steering pump, but then you turn, idler pulley spins good, tensioner spins good. When you get to the alternator, see it wobbling back and forth, and you can hear it. That's a bad bearing in the alternator. That's it.
Oh, okay.
So now we know the alternator is the problem, but if you want to check and make sure it's not something internal with the engine, you can always crank the car with no accessory belt on it and just let it run for a few seconds. You can tell it's completely quiet and turn it right back off. You won't have any issues with the car. So I did that, and engine's completely quiet. Now let's try to take the alternator out. Now as you can see, there's not much room. Get down to the alternator, you can see a mount bolt right there on top. There's another one hidden back there in the back. And just below the alternator, you can see the AC compressor. So in the very back of the alternator, you have some electrical connections. Take them off. Always remove the negative battery cable first to make sure you don't cause any other issues. But in these front wheel drive cars today, with the accessory drive belt on the left-hand side, a lot of times you want to take the passenger side tire off. Then once you do that, you can remove the splash guard and give yourself a lot more room. Now the manual tells you to take the AC compressor loose, but you don't want to disconnect any lines. That's going to cost more money. Especially you're not supposed to let the refrigerant go into the atmosphere, but you can unbolt it and then rotate it out of the way, and then take the 2 bolts out of the alternator, rotate it pulley side down. They're saying that gives you more room, but what I'm going to try to do is not even try to take the passenger side tire off, just take these 2 bolts off, remove electrical connectors, rotate it down, and try to fit it out of this gap. We'll see. Now to disconnect the battery without having to go all the way down to where the battery is at, which is deep down in there, you have to take the driver's side tire off, get in here in the splash guard. But if all you want to do is disconnect it, all you have to do is disconnect the negative terminal right here. This goes straight down to the battery, connects it to the frame of the car. 15 millimeter socket. Now if you're like me, you're a little leery of remote connections like this. This right here goes to your battery. It's disconnected from the ground. The ground is through the entire vehicle. Vehicle now has no power. You can check it with a voltmeter. Take your positive side over here, put the red of the voltmeter, black of the voltmeter over here, make sure you don't have any power. Or you can just try to turn the car on, see if it has any power. So I can't even see the back bolt for this alternator. So what I'm gonna do is try to take this one loose. It's 13 millimeter. Then I'm gonna rotate alternator down. I'll be able to see the wires better, disconnect them, and then see if I can even get to that rear bolt without taking the tire off. So if you get you a mirror, you can see the bottom bolt to the alternator right there. So I should be able to get to it, loosen it. It won't come down without loosening that bottom bolt. Hopefully I can loosen it, rotate it down. We'll get a better idea of what's going on. So I gave up on trying to do it from the top. Took the passenger side tire off. You have 2 bolts, one here and one here. It's 10 millimeter. Then you got one of these connectors right here. What you want to do is take a screwdriver, try to pry out on that right there. You want to get the center section out. Then you can take one of these and pry that whole thing out. Get this completely out of the way. And of course you want to work safe. I left my jack on there, but now I got blocks of wood here in case the jack slips, falls down or whatever. Car's gonna hit that. It's gonna come down some. It'll scare me, but it's not gonna come on top of me. But then you can look inside of here and see your alternator up there. You can try to work with that or take the rest of this splash guard out. Got these connectors here, on right here. Take this all the way out. Or you could probably just pull it out of the way, but I'm not gonna do that. Take it all the way out. So I see the problem now, why I couldn't get onto it from up top. Was impossible to video. See, there's your bolt right there at the very top, middle of the screen for the alternator. See, this idler pulley is in the way where you can't get to that bolt. So you take that idler pulley out and then you get to that bolt. So the idler pulley is a 16 millimeter and my other 16 millimeter sitting on the tensioner. Can't get it loose because it's sitting up against the frame with the spring all the way out. Didn't feel like trying to wiggle that out, so I have a 1/2 inch 16 millimeter. So remember that. Idler pulley 16, take it off. Once your idler pulley comes off, it's captive. You can actually unscrew this and it may come off while you're taking it off. That way you can see the bearing inside there. You can spin it or just spin it just like it is. This one's in really good shape. With that out of the way, now we can get to that bolt. Finally. Now the bottom bolt is 16 millimeter. I didn't take it out all the way, I just loosened it so I can rotate this down because I don't want this completely to fall out with the wires still connected. But I'm hoping I can rotate this down some, give me a little more room for the wires. It rotates a little bit, but not a whole lot. May just have to end up pulling that bolt all the way out. So what is actually holding it up is the large wire back here in the back. But I'm going to show you this remote wire, well, signal wire, whatever you want to call this. I don't know what it is, but when you see it'll be in the alternator like that, and I'll pull this little red tab back, and then I don't know if you have to squeeze it, but it felt like I needed to, so I put a little pressure on it with my thumb, pulled it right off. Now laying underneath, from looking from the driver's side, you can see that nut right there we got to take off, and the back side of the bolt on the other side. So that wire, the nut for it is a 13 millimeter. And that's why I want to take your battery loose, because this is a positive connection to the alternator. And when you're trying to take that nut off, if you touch that nut and then the frame anywhere on the engine, anywhere that's grounded at the same time, bad things are going to happen. So we've got the top connector disconnected, and then you're probably going to want to take the AC wire loose also to give you a little more room, because it's kind of tight right there. So now we can just remove that bottom bolt and see if we can pull it out through the top. So I got the bottom bolt out. I haven't had to take anything loose on the air conditioner compressor. It looks like I may be able to pull it right out of the top. You never know. Oh, one hand is not good. Put the camera down. So I was able to get it out through the top without messing with the air conditioner compressor at all. Right through here, even with this still on the tensioner, they're able to get it out. You can hear those bearings. That's a shame, because the alternator still charges good. So we got our new alternator. You always want to take your old one in. That way you can have your core charge. You don't get charged for your core charge. They go ahead and take it off. This time it was 40 bucks. And you also want to make sure that your terminals are the same. Well, let me pick it up. Oh, it's high, right? You also want to make sure your terminals are the same and your mount bolt locations are going to be the same. And I got a few torques for you. So you want to put your alternator mount bolts, you want to torque them to 45 foot-pounds or 61 newton meters. And your idler pulley, when you put it back on, 37 foot-pounds or 50 newton meters. And then your terminal, that's the nut on the back, the big wire I was telling you about, it's going to be 88.5 inch-pounds, 88, 89, 90, not a big deal, or 10 newton meters. So I'm not going to show putting it all the way back on. You know how to put a couple bolts on and some wires, right? All right. One thing I did want to mention on every single alternator install is this gap right here, this bushing can push in and out. So you always want to make sure that this bushing is pushed all the way over that way. And what this does, this accounts for many different vehicles for the same alternator. So that can make the mount points wider than it really has to be. And then as you tighten the bolt down, it'll push this bushing in. But if the bushing's already pushed in, you won't be able to get it on if it's in too close. You'll think it's a bad alternator or the wrong one. In reality, you just want to push that out. So you can get some pliers, a C-clamp or something. Make sure it's pushed all the way out. That way you can get it in a lot easier. All right, so I'm having a bad time. Just told you about this bearing. I was standing up, gonna push that bearing out with some pliers, make sure it's all the way out. By the way, it is a bearing, but it's also the nut. That's where the lower bolt comes all the way in through and threads onto that, so it tightens it up and it pulls it in like that. So if it's turning and turning and turning, don't worry about it. If you think it's not getting tight yet, could be just pulling that bushing in. But if you see that right there, while I was doing that, I dropped the stupid thing. And now, right on the pulley, now it's hard to turn. So I'm gonna do the right thing, be honest, go to O'Reilly and tell them I dropped it. Honesty and integrity is the best thing to do. May cost me an additional $300 if it does, oh well. All right, let's go see what they say. Let me tell you, O'Reilly Auto Parts is great to work with. Excellent customer service, and I feel like making myself some homemade soup because it's a great day to be alive. Don't know what I'm talking about? Travis Tritt. Check it out, great day to be alive. I'm not gonna sing it for you, but I took it in there, I was honest with them, told them, look man, I dropped it right on the pulley. I think I pushed the shaft back in a little bit, it's not turning very good. And I'm not gonna say what store it is, I'm not gonna give any names because I don't wanna get anybody in trouble, but they let me turn it in and gave me another one. So use O'Reilly Auto Parts. Now I've used them for years, they've been great for customer service, and I wanna personally thank O'Reilly for not charging me another $300 for an alternator, even though I dropped it, it's my fault. Now I would not have charged my buddy for 2 alternators. I'd have had to buy one, so I'd have been out $300 myself. So anyway, back to the install. I also wanted to show you something real quick. This is actually the bottom cradle, I guess you could say, for the bottom mount bolt. So you don't have to put this alternator all the way in and then try to fish that bolt in. You can go ahead and put that bolt all the way through. Obviously you don't want to tighten it up, but just thread it, make sure it's threaded in there good, and then you can just set that into that little cradle. To get a better look at it, there it is. Wide open all the way. So just put that big bolt, your lower bolt. I didn't put it in yet because I didn't realize that. But I'm gonna go ahead and put that in and thread it, set it right in that cradle. Then once you get it set in there, then you can just pivot it. Just like that, up and back, put it wherever you need it. But you're gonna want it down so you can reach the wires, attach them, and then push it right on back up to attach the top bolt. So I wanted to show you this tool. I've showed it in another video, but it's worth mentioning again. As you can see, it's hard to get a socket up there if you wanna do a torque or whatever with the frame in the way. But this little torque adapter right here, got it from Amazon. Essentially, it can turn anything that you can fit in there, in this case, 16mm wrench, turn it into a dog bone. Costs 40 bucks. Now you can attach a torque wrench to it. And 40 bucks may seem like a lot, but when you compare it to buying a whole set of dog bones, it's cheap. So now I'll be able to torque that. 2 long extensions in there, putting a wrench on the idler pulley. That allowed me to be way out here to torque it. And you can set that wrench up at a 90-degree angle from the torque wrench, so you don't have to do an equation that would multiply the arm. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but if you torque something straight on like this with an adapter, you have to take the length and you have to equate that you're going to have a longer distance from the torque wrench, more leverage. It's going to bring the torque a little higher than what you have set on the torque wrench. But when you buy this adapter, it comes with that equation. They show you how to do that. Or just put the torque wrench at a 90-degree angle. You don't have to worry about it. Now our idler pulley is on there and torqued. No sound. Turning excellent. Alternator. Spinning great and quiet. So now let's talk about this belt installation. And it's raining outside, so that's the noise. Here is the belt diagram for the 2.4 liter Dodge. Still have my belt tool hooked up to the tensioner, and I allow the belt, as you can see, to be around it. That'll give you a lot of slack to be able to put this belt on. And just follow the diagram. I go underneath the car and make sure all the pulleys are lined up with the belt on the bottom side. Make sure everything is good to go. So that way, all I have to do is pull this handle up on top and slip it over that tensioner pulley and then be good to go. And one last check to make sure everything is lined up before we crank the car. All the ribs are lined up. There's a little bit of misalignment on an idler pulley. It's not that bad. It'll move back over, but you definitely don't want to have the belt stuck down there on the crankcase and crank the car. And of course, check underneath. Make sure all the ribs are lined up. AC compressor, alternator, idler pulley, all that looks good. Another idler right there, and then the water pump. Then we'll hook up our ground for the battery and crank it up. And one last tool check. Make sure we don't have a tool stuck in there somewhere. It's gonna start whapping around and break everything. Hopefully that's our problem. And success. That's a quiet running engine. Alternator spinning great. Not making a loud racket like it was before. So on this hot, muggy day, and of course it's raining outside with the sun shining, which is gonna make it even more muggy. But thanks for watching. I hope you're able to follow along and fix your car if this is the problem. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.